Welcome to this explainer. When chaos suddenly erupts at one of the most secure locations on the entire planet, the rumors, well, they almost always outpace the reality. We've all seen the headlines flashing across our screens, the shaky cell phone footage, frantic eyewitness accounts, and just a whole lot of speculation. So today, we're cutting straight through all that noise. We're going to look at the exact timeline of a truly terrifying shooting that happened right outside the White House. We're walking through the established facts, relying solely on official reports from authorities to understand exactly what went down. How does a highly fortified zone descend into absolute violence in just a matter of seconds? Let's get right into it and find out. So, what really happened? When a high-security zone suddenly turns into a scene of unexpected violence, the initial details can honestly be a total blur for the public. Information trickles out in tiny fragments, and the sheer panic of the moment makes it incredibly difficult to understand the true sequence of events. We're diving straight into this high-stakes narrative to cut through that confusion. We're going directly to the timeline and the facts established by the United States Secret Service. No filler, no speculation. Digging into these specific details is absolutely crucial because it reveals not just what happened, but how quickly the illusion of safety can shatter in a public space. Put yourself on the ground for a second. Imagine you're walking near the White House on what feels like a completely normal Saturday afternoon. Maybe you're heading back to your office, or maybe you're sightseeing, taking in the monuments. The streets are absolutely bustling with tourists, local workers, everyday folks just going about their lives. And then, without a single moment of warning, the sharp, unmistakable crack of gunshots echoes through downtown Washington, D.C. In a fraction of a second, an ordinary afternoon shatters into absolute terror. The suddenness of it is staggering. And, that terrifying scenario wasn't just some hypothetical. It became a harsh, immediate reality for the people on the ground that day. A day that ultimately left one gunman dead and an innocent person seriously wounded. To really understand the gravity of the scene right before the chaos erupted, we have to look at the specific dynamics of the intersection where this all took place, near 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. If you're familiar with the layout of Washington, D.C., you already know exactly where this is. It is right in the thick of the action. This area? It's not just some random street corner. It's heavily trafficked by pedestrians, motorcades, and incredibly dense crowds year-round. You've got this constant mix of high-level professionals and global tourists converging in one single space. It's a bustling hub of activity, sitting in the immediate shadow of the executive branch, which makes the sudden eruption of gunfire there just all the more shocking. And the sheer juxtaposition here is staggering. We are talking about an incident that happened literally steps away from one of the most heavily protected buildings in America. Think about what that actually means for a second. You have incredible layers of anti-scale fencing, heavily armed tactical teams, K-9 units, and overlapping security perimeters constantly monitoring the area. I mean, it's an environment engineered specifically to deter and neutralize threats. And yet, right on its very doorstep, an unpredictable and deadly threat materialized out of nowhere. It highlights a deeply unsettling reality about heavily fortified public spaces in modern cities. No matter how robust the defensive perimeter is, the public areas immediately surrounding them remain inherently vulnerable to sudden bursts of violence. So, at the center of this sudden burst of violence was a 21-year-old named Nasir Best. And what makes this particular case so striking, and frankly, so terrifying for everyone in the vicinity, is the utter lack of any buildup. A lot of times in security incidents near major landmarks, there's a preceding altercation, maybe a breached barricade, or a prolonged standoff with authorities. But here, there was absolutely none of that. No negotiations, no warning signs whatsoever. According to the official timeline provided by authorities, Best simply pulled a weapon from his bag and escalated the situation to deadly force in an absolute instant. It was a totally abrupt escalation in a crowded public space, giving bystanders and authorities virtually zero time to mentally prepare for what was coming next. The very moment that weapon was visible, the response was instantaneous, and everything happened at a blistering pace. Bess opens fire. Instantly, the Secret Service agents stationed along the perimeter react to the gunfire. There is no hesitation. They immediately return fire to neutralize the threat. In a matter of seconds, an active, close-quarter shootout erupts right there on a busy city street. And within moments of those very first shots ringing out, absolute panic spreads across the entire area. Dozens of bystanders are suddenly caught in a frantic scramble for survival. People are running for cover, diving behind benches, desperately trying to escape the crossfire. It was a rapid-fire exchange that completely consumed the intersection before most people even registered what was actually happening. Now, When you have a sudden, close quarters exchange of gunfire in a highly populated area like this, the potential for a mass casualty event is genuinely horrifying. Bullets are flying, panic is setting in, and the chaos is just overwhelming. But there's one crucial, almost miraculous takeaway from the immediate physical toll of this intense exchange: zero. Despite the total surprise of the suspect opening fire and the immediate chaotic exchange of bullets right there on the street, not a single Secret Service agent was injured. Zero. The agents involved managed to return fire and end the confrontation without taking any physical casualties themselves. And honestly, that speaks volumes about the speed of their response and the sheer unpredictability of urban gunfights. Okay, so when the gunfire finally stopped and the smoke cleared, the aftermath of this rapid exchange had to be carefully documented. Let's look at the outcomes. For the suspect, Nasir Best, authorities confirmed he was struck during the exchange with the Secret Service, and he later died at a local hospital. Now, as we literally just discussed, the Secret Service agents involved in the shootout emerged with no reported injuries. However, the outcome was not limited to just the gunman and law enforcement. In a crowded public space, the tragic reality is that the crossfire rarely stays confined to the primary targets. There was a third party involved in this violent encounter, and unfortunately, they did not escape the chaos completely unharmed. Tragically, an innocent bystander was caught directly in the crossfire. This is the deeply sobering human toll of the incident, and honestly, it's the emotional core of this entire story. This wasn't just some isolated, tactical confrontation between a gunman and law enforcement. Everyday citizens were trapped right in the middle of it. Officials report that this victim, someone who was simply in the wrong place at the very worst possible time, suffered a serious gunshot wound. While they thankfully survived the immediate, terrifying chaos of the shootout, they were left in a serious but stable condition. It's just a stark, heartbreaking reminder of the terrifying reality of collateral damage. A person just going about their day became a casualty in a sudden explosion of violence. Which leaves us with a truly unsettling reality to consider. When chaos can erupt just steps from the nation's most fortified building, how can innocent bystanders truly stay safe? It's a heavy question, isn't it? And it's one that lingers long after the police tape is taken down and the streets are finally reopened. We've broken down the rapid timeline, the individuals involved, and the really unfortunate human cost of an event that shattered a normal afternoon. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the headlines, always stay aware of your surroundings, and I'll catch you next time.